But here's the key point. What we really don't like about change is not so much what's going on or what's actually happening. It's about how it makes us feel. How it makes us feel. In other words, what we think about what's going on. Hi, I'm Liam Naden, and welcome to my podcast, Let Yourself Off the Hook. As someone who has studied success for decades, I have found the formula for achieving your dreams and goals, and it's all to do with how you use your brain. Each week on my show, I will provide you with the tools, resources, and expertise to utilize your brain to its ultimate potential and remove the barriers to your success. And as you will discover, true success in every area of your life only comes when you let yourself off the hook. Welcome. In this episode, we're going to talk about change. What is it? Why do we resist it? And instead, how can we actually use change to help us and improve our life? You know, it's a funny thing. Change in itself has a bit of a paradox attached to it, because it's actually the only thing that is constant in the universe. When you really think about it, everything is in a constant state of change. And it's everything from the biggest galaxies and parts of the universe, right down to the smallest microparticles, subatomic particles. Everything is in a state of movement. Everything is in a state of change. And if you think about your own life, isn't it true that things are constantly changing as well? And it's in every area of your life. Look at your physical body. I'm sure it's quite different to what it was just a year ago. It's constantly changing. Cells are dying and new ones are being created. All your organs are changing all the time. And what about your life situation? Maybe your relationship, whether you're in a relationship or not, the situation around relationships, it's constantly changing, isn't it? Same with your business or your career. And of course, if you get to looking about what's going on around you in the world, I'm sure we would all agree that things are changing massively. But here's the paradox. Even though change is the only constant, it's the only thing we can really rely on to be true about what's happening in our life and in the world, even though it's the only constant, it's the one thing we seem to resist. We seem to want to stop change. We don't like change. Often we do everything we can to change as little as possible. Think of how many people are saying at the moment, all of the things that are going on in the world, I don't like them. I want things to go back to the way they were. I don't like all the changes that are happening. So we're very resistant to change, even though it's inevitable. And what happens with this resistance? Well, it's like all forms of resistance to what is. It leaves us frustrated. It leaves us feeling weak, vulnerable, like we're a victim of our circumstance. We just don't like it. And it makes us feel afraid, worried, anxious, and really putting a lot of energy into something that's not giving us any benefit, that's not giving us any good result. It's just weakening us, making us unhappy, and making life less of this enjoyable experience that it's actually supposed to be. So in this episode, I want to look at what change really is, and more importantly, the effect it really has on us, and how we can use change in a different way. We can't prevent change. We can't even slow it down, but we can use it in a way that will actually benefit us in our life rather than making us feeling tired, frustrated, and really disempowered and not being in control of our life. So first, let's think about what actually happens and what our response to change actually is. Because if we know that things are constantly changing, and a lot of the things that are happening in our world seem beyond our control, and they are beyond our control. So if we know that all of this change is constantly happening, what is it that causes us to resist it? Why don't we like it? Now you might think, well, it's because of what's going on. For instance, I don't like it if my relationship isn't going well. I don't like it if my business changes so that my sales go down. Or my career, that I suddenly, or gradually, I don't enjoy it anymore. I don't like the change in what's happening. I don't like the change in the people that I'm dealing with. Maybe there are new people coming into your life, or other people that are no longer in your life that you would like them to be there, but you don't like those changes. You don't like the different new dynamics. You don't like the energy that's surrounding these people. But here's the key point. What we really don't like about change is not so much what's going on or what's actually happening. It's about how it makes us feel. How it makes us feel. In other words, what we think about what's going on. So, for instance, there could be a change in your relationship. Perhaps a relationship that you have might have ended recently, and you're in a state of change where you're no longer in a relationship, and you don't like it. But what don't you like? You don't like the feelings that it's giving you, the feelings of uncertainty, of loneliness, of regret, that things ended the way they did. So it's not actually the circumstances, the change in circumstances that we don't like. It's how it makes us feel, how it makes us feel uncomfortable, unhappy, afraid, full of regret, full of fear. And when you really boil it down, you realize that these feelings, which is what you don't like about the change that's happening, it all boils down to one thing, and that's uncertainty. You don't know what's going to happen. You have a fear about the future. You're worried about the future. That's the real reason why we resist change, why we don't like change, is because it leaves us with these feelings of uncertainty. Because if you really think about it, sometimes things change and you're really happy about it and you embrace the change. So, for instance, if you have a career that's not working for you and you find a better job, you don't mind the change. You look forward to the change. You're excited about what this new future might bring because you don't have the uncertainty. You know things are going to go well. You've maybe met the new people that you're going to work with. You know what you're going to be doing. You're excited about it. You don't fear the change because you don't have the uncertainty. So it is these feelings of uncertainty, not knowing what's going to happen in the future. That's why we resist change. But here's another really interesting thing that's quite puzzling, and that is nobody knows what's going to happen in the future. Not one of us has a crystal ball that can predict what's going to happen. And yet our automatic reaction is to be afraid of it, to think that bad things are going to happen. But we don't know. We don't know at all. We don't know if great things aren't going to happen. But resisting this change, it's so destructive on our life because it doesn't just make us feel bad on an emotional level, but it really keeps us stuck. It's what keeps us unhappy and frustrated and not making the changes in our life that we know that we should and could make and that would make a massive difference. But this fear of change, it's like a wall or a barrier that we just can't get past, can we? And it never seems to go away. This constant feeling that there's something uneasy about your life. You're worried about the future. You don't like the change. You want to have certainty. You want to know what's going to happen, and you want to know that things are going to turn out right. But you never can because you can't see the future. But fear of change is actually a lot more destructive than just making us feel bad and keeping us stuck. What it also does is it limits our awareness because it stops us from seeing that actually everything is perfect the way it is. And that change, no matter what's happening, there's a perfect side to it. There's a good side to everything. But we can't see that when we have this uneasy, stressed feeling, this worried feeling about change. And that's actually to do with our brain, which I'll talk about shortly. But because we don't see the good side, we don't see the totality of everything that is real about our life and about our situation when we're worried and we're stressed and we're not feeling good about the changes that are happening, the other thing that happens is we miss opportunities. We simply don't see opportunities to do things and to have things that would really make a massively positive difference to our life. And I think that's really tragic that people get so stuck in this fear of change, because I've met people, and maybe you've met people as well, who 10, 20, even 30 years later, they suddenly realize that their life has passed them by. They're full of regrets of all of the things they haven't done that 10 or 20 or 30 years ago they really wanted to do. Their dreams, their hopes. They wake up and they realize they're never going to achieve them anymore. They've stayed stuck all their life. And when you get to that point, well, what happens? You have to justify where you are. And you say things like, well, that's life. That's just the way it is. And I've had a pretty good life anyway. And you can't do everything. And no big deal. It really wasn't that important to me anyway. But deep down, these people know, on a deep emotional level, they have this feeling of sadness and regret about their life. Now, obviously, you don't want to be in that position, and I don't want you to be in that position either. So we really need to learn to understand what this thing change is and how we can actually use it for our benefit, rather than have it as something that holds us back all the time. And again, one of the paradoxes is that not only is change inevitable, but it's one of the greatest things that we can actually make use of that's really going to transform our life, that's really going to give us a life that we're proud of, that we love to live. It all comes down to learning how to use change the right way. All right, so let's look at that now, and let's look at how do we overcome our resistance to change? How do we embrace change? How do we make it something positive in our life? Well, the first step is simply to understand why we resist change in the first place. And really, understanding is 90% of the battle. It's 90% of the battle with anything. Because once you understand how something works, you find yourself automatically doing things in a much more effective way. It's like driving your motor car. If you don't understand how your car works, or how to drive your car, you might think, well, the way to do it is I need to stand behind and push. Put all my energy and strength into trying to push this car along. And you know what happens? You get exhausted and you don't get anywhere, and it's certainly no fun. But once you understand, and maybe it takes someone else to explain to you how to drive that car, how it actually works, how it's designed to be used, then you make a lot more progress, because you simply do it the right way. You go, I understand now, that's the way I should do it. And it wouldn't occur to you after that to go back to the old way of struggle with no results. So it's the same with understanding change, understanding what's really going on in our brain when we resist change, and how we can turn it around and use it the right way to make change, which is a natural and inevitable part of life, how we can make it a natural part of our life to improve our life. So why do we resist change? Well, it actually comes down to pure biology. Now, if you've listened to previous episodes of this podcast, or if you've studied my 4-part brain model, you'll know that one of the most powerful of these 4 parts of your brain is your survival brain. And this is wired, designed, and programmed to protect you from danger. Now, to do that, it needs to be, as far as it sees, in control of your environment. It needs to know what's going on. It needs to see all of the dangers. So this isn't a part of your brain that deals very well with uncertainty. And when you think about it from a survival perspective, if you're faced with a threat or a danger, uncertainty is bad. You need to know what's going on. If there's a lion behind the rock, you need to know where it is. You need to know that it's there. You need to know how big it is, how close it is, and how likely it is to eat you. So uncertainty does not sit well with the survival brain. And it's constantly, if you're using this part of your brain, if this part of your brain is activated, it's going to do everything it can to prevent uncertainty. And one of the ways to make things certain in your life, in other words, to avoid uncertainty, is simply not to do anything new. Just stick with what you know. This is your brain talking. Just stick with what I know. I can see I can understand that there is no danger there, or there is a danger there, but I can deal with it. But there's not any uncertainty. I've uncovered all of the uncertain things. So this is what your survival brain does when it's activated. It's literally programmed to avoid uncertainty, which of course is change. And what's really happening on a subconscious level is that your brain, particularly when you're activating your survival brain, and we'll talk a bit more about this shortly, but when you're activating your survival brain, what's actually happening is that on a subconscious level, your brain is associating change or uncertainty with pain. And it's constantly building images in your mind of bad things that might happen as a result of the change that's happening in your life. So, for instance, you lose your business or your business sales go down. Your brain is associating that with pain. You're not going to make as much money. You might end up bankrupt. You might end up losing things, losing everything. You might end up losing your freedom, not being able to have the money to do the things that you want to do. And over time, over the course of our lifetime, what we're actually doing is we're building all of these associations between change and uncertainty and pain. Now, to understand this a bit more clearly, let's think about the opposite, changes that you don't associate with pain. And when you really think about this, you realize that when you associate a change with pleasure, you don't have any problem dealing with it. So, for instance, if you're ending a relationship, if you're going on to a better one, you associate more pleasure with that change than pain. And maybe you've heard of people, I've certainly met people who have been told, I met a gentleman a while ago, and he was a heavy smoker all his life, and he said he could never give up smoking. He tried and tried, but he just never could. And then he had a health problem, and a doctor said, you're going to need a heart transplant, but I can't, to save your life, but I'm not going to do it unless you give up smoking. And that man gave up smoking instantly, and he didn't have any problem giving up smoking. Why? Because the change that he associated with giving up smoking was now something that was going to cause him pleasure. Before, giving up smoking meant he wouldn't have this pleasure of smoking his cigarettes, it wouldn't be helping him relax, he wouldn't be able to enjoy that. But now, the giving up smoking meant he would have the pleasure of actually saving his life. So we don't have any trouble dealing with change when we associate pleasure with it, when we know something good is going to happen as a result. Okay, so knowing all of this about change, knowing that it's actually one of the most powerful tools that we could use to improve our life, also knowing that it's pretty well the only thing you can be certain of that's true about this universe is that change is happening all the time, knowing that when we resist it, it makes us feel bad and keeps us stuck, keeps us missing opportunities and not seeing the greatness of the world that actually exists by limiting our awareness, and knowing that the real reason we resist change and that it makes us feel so bad is that our brain is trying to protect us from uncertainty, and it's associating uncertainty with bad things that might happen in our life. Knowing all of these things, what can we do to change it? What can we do to start using change instead of something that we think is bad or is going to lead to bad things and is keeping us stuck and that we feel bad about? How can we start to feel good about uncertainty? Well, the first thing, of course, is just to accept that change is inevitable. I mean, it's going to happen, so you might as well deal with it in a good way and get a handle on all this stuff and find a way to use it to take control of your feelings about change, because it's going to happen. And the next thing is to really realize what's going on in your brain when you resist change. Because when you have those feelings of fear, doubt, stress, worry, anxiety, when there's change going on around you, what's really happening is you're activating one of the 4 parts of your brain, the survival brain, which is telling you that this change is a threat to your survival. And it probably isn't. It almost certainly isn't a threat to your survival, whatever the change is. but it's feeding all of these ideas coming from your subconscious to making you feel and do everything you can to resist it, because it's trying to protect you. That's what it's there for, from the danger that it sees exists in change. A good way to do this is to really, when you start to experience those anxious feelings around something that's changing in your life, is to ask yourself, what are my thoughts? What am I feeling about this? What am I thinking about this that's making me feel bad? So, for instance, if it's that you don't have enough money, or you don't know, or maybe you're losing some money, or your business isn't going so well, what are the thoughts that you're having about that? What are the thoughts that are making you feel bad about it? Are they things like, well, if my business continues to go down, I might lose it, and then I might have to sell my home. I might have to start all over again, and I don't know what to do. I wouldn't know what to do. So just become aware of all of these thoughts that you're having, and realizing that those thoughts aren't just making you feel bad, but they're activating, through your bad feelings, they're activating your survival brain, which is going to keep you stuck. Because remember, your survival brain is there to get rid of pain and uncertainty, but it can't help you to solve the problems in your life. The part of your brain that's designed to help you solve your problems quickly, easily, and effectively, and make sure you don't have problems, but live a life full of creativity, where you know the right things to do, where you're imaginative, where you get new ideas from, that's your creative brain. And your creative brain is literally shut down, switched off, when you feel fear, stress, and anxiety, because that switches on your survival brain, and the two can't operate together. So just become aware of those thoughts and say, these thoughts, what are the thoughts that are making me feel bad, that are activating my survival brain and shutting down my creative brain? The next thing is to stop resisting change and just say, I don't know what's going to happen. I literally don't know what's going to happen. Because your brain is telling you what it thinks is going to happen, and they're all bad things, aren't they? You're going to go bankrupt, you're going to lose all your money, you're going to be alone, you're not going to have the freedom to do what you want to do, you're going to have a miserable life. That's what your brain is telling you. But you don't know any of those things are true. So say to yourself, I don't know what's going to happen. Say to your thoughts and to your brains, when these thoughts come up, say, hang on a second, I don't know what's going to happen. And then when you accept that you don't know what's going to happen, you can change the situation around. You can change your thoughts. And try this. When you feel those feelings of stress and fear about the change that's going on in your life, or it could be even about a change that you think might be going to happen that hasn't happened already, say to yourself, change is happening. I wonder what great things might be about to happen. I wonder what great things might be about to happen. And don't say this in any sort of bombastic way. Just say it out of curiosity. I wonder what great things might be about to happen. And when you do that, you're not going to feel as bad. And you're going to give your creative brain a chance to start doing its work and bring you good things in your life. Because good things are just as likely to happen as bad things. In fact, probably more likely. And if you use your creative brain instead of your survival brain, good things are far more likely to happen. They're virtually guaranteed to happen. Because here's the thing. When you use your creative brain, in very simple terms, good things, the things that are best for you, that help you to survive biologically and live your life purpose, those things happen. When you use your survival brain, in other words, when you feel bad, stressed, worried, and anxious, when you activate your survival brain, then you're pretty well guaranteed that you're going to make mistakes. You're going to see things far worse than they are. You're going to feel bad, and none of those things are going to help you. So the real key to embracing change and using this constant of the universe, this thing that's inevitable, that's as constant and inevitable as the air that we're breathing in every moment, the key to using it for our benefit is to say, how can I use change to activate my creative brain rather than my survival brain? In other words, How can I use it to feel good rather than to feel bad? And that comes from analysing what it is that's making you feel bad about the change, realising it's just a thought, it's just an idea, it's just the uncertainty of it that's making you feel bad, and switch that around and say, I wonder what great things might be about to happen. And get curious, and then take some action. Not talking about big action, just a small step. Take the next small step. The first thing that occurs to you might be to stand up or sit down or switch off the news. Anything, just a small step. And once you get into this new habit of looking forward to change, of realizing that it means good things are about to happen, that your life is about to move in an even better direction, unfold in a better way, then you can start looking forward to change. You're not worried about the future. And when you do that, guess what happens? Good things happen in your life, unexpected things. And you go, wow, I wonder where that came from. I wonder how that happened. That's a miracle. And of course, everything is a miracle. So why not make your miracles good ones? You can. All you need to do is activate and use your creative brain instead of your survival brain. So just to wrap up, really the point is we all know change is inevitable. You can't stop it. You can't even slow it down. So use it in a way that's going to empower you rather than disempower you. And all that comes down to is simply changing the habit of how you interact with change, how you feel about it, how you see it, and the meaning you choose to give it for your life. This is Liam Naden signing off. Thanks for watching. But before you go, there's some action to take. Hit the subscribe and like buttons and leave your thoughts in a comment below. I'd love your feedback. And if you have friends who you think would benefit from this, please share it with them. Thanks again for your support, and stay tuned for more from me, Liam Naden. And remember, you can only reach your full potential when you let yourself off the hook.